All right, everyone, it's time for an important story here. I think that you know that Hawaii missile test yesterday, and everyone, they tried to use it for political leverage, which is, par for the course, I guess. Oh, it was Trump's fault. No, the Democrats run Hawaii. It's like, come on, people. Give it a fucking rest for a second, okay? You almost had a situation where people were going to get hurt. In such a situation, people in an attempt to, what happens if someone's like psychotic and they're the only thing holding it back is their will to live, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to get nuked. I'm going to go chainsaw somebody to death. You could have caused a lot of people to be very, very hurt there. You could have mass panic and chaos. One thing that gives me hope, though, and this is part of this video, is that there wasn't like mass casualty, total, absolute, unending panic. A lot of people handled it fairly well, and I think you even saw like the human side of some people. They're like, oh yeah, we can let this group use our car. This family took shelter with us and stuff. That's really, really good to know that there are plenty of people that would do that. Because what I suspect is that this was not an accident at all. The one big problem, like a warning system like this, is that even if you conduct drills, if people know that they're not real, they're not going to react in the same way. You need to have a test in which the majority of people actually think that it's legit. So what better way to do it? Look, this missile warning isn't just a stand-in for North Korea, although it most closely associates with that the context of Hawaii. It could be any nuclear power or any other military power attacking us, trying to conduct some sort of attack on Hawaii or some similar place with long-range missiles. Chemical, biological, radiological, doesn't really matter. It is good to know, and I'm sure this was the basic premise of why this so-called accident occurred. It's good to know that the civilian population did not immediately fall into total disorder upon being warned, because then you have a situation where when you're facing like in North Korea, you've got two fundamental choices. Warn the population and risk calamity. What if you intercept all the missiles, but everybody panics, and then when mass panic breaks out, there are like fires going on, everyone abandons post, they're running around like chickens with their heads cut off, they're like crying and screaming, people are killing themselves, people are looting and shooting and burning things down. If that's the case, if that had happened in the wake of this, I suspect they would have dismantled the warning system's actual functionality altogether without telling anybody. Because then, the suffering caused if you are successful in your military maneuver is actually worse than if you got hit by an atomic weapon. Total chaos. The entire island chain just erupts into mass panic and anarchy. The state has to have the military march in to restore order at that point. That's what could happen. I suspect this was actually a military exercise. I don't think that it was an accident at all. When they have that Mr. Miyagi come out there, that's his literal name, so like the funniest thing I've ever seen, because then everyone was making like Karate Kid memes. When he comes and says, well, I take responsibility. By the way, the person had to actually click through several screens to issue the warning. Don't worry, we're getting him counseling. Don't you think that if this weren't something that they were actually meaning to do, that they would have fired the person? They wouldn't be in counseling. No, the person's probably in on the job. Mr. Miyagi is probably fully aware of the fact that the U.S. government told him to do this. And he gave an aside to the employee and he says, okay, this is part of a sensitive operation. They had the one CIA-linked employee, press it, and then they'll go into fake counseling for a while, witness protection, and they've made their point. It's a test. And probably what it means is they're expecting the very real possibility of war to erupt with North Korea. People need to be very mindful of this. This sort of thing, do you honestly think that some random employee going rogue can, on their own authority, press through one screen and issue a missile warning that impacts an entire state? Is that sensible? Would it be sane for the state of Hawaii or the U.S. government or military to implement such a program in which one person, by virtue of having a bad day at work, having a fit, or something like that, they were a little bit of a trolling attempt gone horribly wrong, could cause mass panic and thus the deaths of large numbers of people and an economic breakdown in the state? Do you honestly think that that would happen? No, nobody short of Miyagi himself probably could issue that order. It's a scapegoat, it's a cop-out. By the way, though, at the same time, even though that's underhanded, it's probably a good thing to do. I would actually, if it came out that that's actually what happened, I would support the U.S. military 100% on that. It's important to know that people aren't immediately going to break down into total disorder and panic because they get a text on their phone saying, hey, take cover. You could save literally tens, hundreds of thousands of lives. Yeah, I know most people in Hawaii, they don't have basements, and then, most things are wooden walls and not exactly going to withstand a hydrogen bomb. But they could calmly get to the fringes of that city and get behind a hill line or something. They could at least attempt to shield themselves. They could attempt, people were putting their children in storm drains. Actually, not that bad an idea. Get down to the storm drain. It's going to be safer than huddling in your house. There are contingencies that people can take in the event of an atomic or hydrogen bomb attack. Not if you're, within the blast radius, but outside of the blast radius, there are measures you can take to limit the death toll. Even I've spoken of before, like in the 1950s, when they used to make the early suburbs, all the houses were very light colored. The homeowners associations and everyone else comes in and says your lawns have to be kept very trimmed, no trash anywhere. You know why that design was made? It was to prevent firestorm. Because they did a testing with just primitive atomic bombs in the mid and late 40s. And they determined that houses that weren't freshly painted, they had like exposed wood, they were kind of dilapidated, they had a lot of brush around, they would ignite even if they were quite some distance away from the center of the explosion. That causes a firestorm. But having a light-colored reflective paint, nice manicured lawns and stuff means only a few fires are actually going to break out. For the most part, people will survive that attack. They will actually survive in the suburbs, an atomic or earlier wave boosted explosive. Now, in the age of the kind of weapons that we have now, it's not necessarily the case. Everyone in the suburbs gets roasted too. Outside of that, though, the story basically remains the same. Like here. If Rutland were to get hit by a North Korean weapon, the blast radius would not approach this property. We would be fine. There would be some light damage, like you would definitely get a surge of wind coming. It might break some windows, but mostly we'd be fine. You'd have to take cover and not, don't expose yourself to the radiation. Potassium iodide is important, but other than that, most people would survive. It wouldn't actually, and probably, let's face it, nobody's going to waste even so much as the most primitive weapon on Rutland. It's just not going to happen. Maybe they hit it with a firecracker. They send a bottle rocket overhead or some fucking shit like that. This was a good thing to do. With 99% certainty, I would say it was deliberate. It wasn't an accident or a rogue employee. It was a military operation. Number 2, I support it. Number 3, it's actually really, really great news that most people didn't panic. It's actually really, really great news that most people, there were some people, like, they immediately went to the liquor store, like, give me the strongest booze you've got, and then they chug it. Okay, there's some relapsed alcoholics in Hawaii was the other joke people were making. True. But for the most part, people didn't go on a shooting spree. They didn't show up at their ex's house and rape them in half. They didn't do terrible things. More of them did noble things. Oh, that's really great news. It shows that there's still a core of social cohesion there. That'd save our ass in such an attack. Now, as for California, if it happened in California, you'd probably have mass panic. You'd probably have people running around and killing each other in California, in all honesty. Maybe Hawaii's more lawful than a place. Los Angeles, can you imagine how they would react? They're not even going to conduct a test in California. Can you imagine what would happen in LA? One person gets shot by the cops, and then the cops get off, and half the city burns to the ground. Yeah, I think that if they knew that a hydrogen weapon was going to hit downtown Los Angeles, it would probably be a little bit of a problem. I don't think that it would go over so well. Maybe Honolulu doesn't have quite as much of a problem. Meanwhile, over here, where everyone has basements, the survivorship would be a lot higher. Like, you look at some of these southern, really humid climate, high groundwater levels. A New Orleans, where you're below sea level, nobody has, like, a basement. Yeah, I'm sorry, but you're fucked. It's flat, so there's no hills to hide behind. There's no woods to hide in, behind a tree or something, try to shield yourself. I guess you're relegated to being, in a ditch. And then the levees, of course, you get fucked, and then that ditch fills with water and you drown. You'd be screwed. There'd be 0% survivorship in some of these urban areas. Hawaii doesn't have quite as much. What if North Korea designed some crazy plan where they try to nuke one of the volcanoes to get it to erupt or something? Then you have radioactive lava. That would be a problem. maybe they would actually try something like that. You know, they accidentally collapsed the area around their last hydrogen bomb test. It just left a massive crater. Like they actually they destroyed enough of the material underneath and compacted it so a massive crater formed. And it's steaming out radiation as we speak. Now, I mean, they're not going to fix the problem. That thing will be radioactive for the next 100 years. But it's good. It's good that they conducted the test. The result, I think, the people at the Pentagon were cheering probably in the wake of it when they gave their report. They were clapping, probably. And that's a good thing. It's actually a military-industrial exercise finally makes fucking sense. Trump may have ordered it himself. You know, in a roundabout way, maybe these people blaming Trump, maybe they're technically right, but for the wrong reasons. That's about all. Peace out.